3 months later, Hana stood in the largest room she had ever seen. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, with seats rising in circles around a central floor. Hundreds of species were represented here, beings with scales, fur, feathers, and things she had no names for. All of them watching her. The mining company's lawyers sat on one side of the chamber. 12 of them, all in expensive suits, all carrying datapads full of arguments. They looked confident. They had done this before, fought these battles and won. On the other side sat the small group from the outpost. Commander Jin, Tay, Day, Mina, and even Yuna, who had requested to testify. Behind them, in a special temperature-controlled area, sat 6 juvenile Valari. Tiny, Stripes, Patch, Bright, Shadow, and Squeaker. They had grown in 3 months, but still looked small compared to the massive room. A new person sat with them, too. Nari, a linguist the council had sent to study the Valari light patterns. She had spent 2 months on the frozen moon, learning to communicate. Her eyes were bright with the kind of excitement that came from discovering something new and wonderful. The head judge, a being that looked like a tall tree with multiple eyes, called the chamber to order. The trial began. The company's lead lawyer stood first. His name was Quan. He was human, which somehow made it worse. He smiled at the council. Honorable judges, this case is based on a misunderstanding. Engineer Hana experienced a traumatic crash and mild hypothermia. In her compromised state, she misinterpreted natural animal behaviors as intelligence. He pulled up a hologram display. The Valari are remarkable creatures. Social, clever, even capable of basic problem solving. But so are dolphins on Earth, so are crows. So are many species reclassify as non-sentient. Intelligence exists on a spectrum. Another lawyer, a woman named Solman, stood next. The so-called language is actually instinctive bioluminescence, like fireflies signaling for mates. The patterns appear complex but contain no actual information. Our experts have analyzed them thoroughly. She displayed charts and graphs. The tool use engineer Hannah observed was simple object manipulation. Ravens do the same thing. The protective behavior was pack instinct. Wolves do it all the time. None of this proves sentience. Quan smiled again. We are not saying engineer Hannah lied. We are saying she saw what she wanted to see. A lonely, scared person in a desperate situation found comfort in these creatures and convinced herself they were more than they are. It is understandable. It is human. But it is not fact. The company brought in their expert witnesses, xenobiologists who had never been to Velar 7 but had studied the old survey data. They spoke with authority about instinct and evolution. They compared the Valari to dozens of Earth animals. They made it sound reasonable, logical, scientific. Hannah watched from her seat, her hands clenched. This was going badly. The council members were nodding at some of the arguments. The company lawyers knew what they were doing. After 2 days of the company's presentation, it was their turn. Commander Jin testified first. He spoke honestly about the years of overlooking signs. I did not want to see the truth because it was inconvenient. But that does not change what the truth is. Tay presented his data analysis. The light patterns have consistent syntax. They have grammar rules. This is not random signaling. This is structured communication. Day talked about the protective behavior he witnessed. They understood that Hannah needed medical help. They allowed us to approach once she gave permission. That is not instinct. That is reasoning. Mina showed the translations her programs had developed. We can now have basic conversations with the Valari. They have words for abstract concepts, past, future, hope, fear, justice. Animals do not have words for justice. But the company lawyers objected to everything. They said the translations were unreliable. They said the humans were seeing patterns that did not exist. They said correlation was not causation. On the 3rd day, Hannah was called to testify. She walked to the center of the chamber on shaking legs. All those eyes watching her. All those beings judging whether she was telling the truth or imagining things. The head judge spoke. Engineer Hannah, tell us in your own words what happened that night. So she did. She told them about the cold, the fear, the impossible choice. She told them about watching the cubs shiver and knowing they would die. She told them about giving up her blanket. "I did not think I was saving people," she said. "I just saw living things suffering and I could not let them die. That is all. But what happened after showed me I was wrong about what they were." She described the way the cubs kept her warm, the beacon they built, the adults arriving and bowing, the light patterns that her tablet translated. "They were not acting on instinct," Hannah said firmly. "They were making choices. They chose to help me. They chose to call their family. They chose to protect me. Choice is what makes people people. And they chose." Quan stood to cross-examine her. "Engineer Hannah, you admit you were fevered and sick. Is it possible your perception was impaired?" "My fever came later," Hannah said. "After the first night. I was clear-headed when I made my observations. But you were under extreme stress. Stressed minds can play tricks. My stress did not make the cubs build that beacon. My stress did not make the adults bow. My stress did not make the light patterns form consistent grammar structures that experts have since verified. You have grown attached to these creatures. Is it possible your emotions are clouding your judgment?" Hannah looked at Tiny, sitting in the special area with the others. "Yes, I love them. But love does not make me blind. Love made me see them clearly for the first time." The trial continued for another week. The judges asked questions. The lawyers argued. Evidence was presented and challenged and presented again. Then Nari took the stand. The linguist was small and quiet, but when she spoke, everyone listened. "I have spent 2 months learning the Vilari language. Not trying to teach them ours. Learning theirs. And they have a language. A beautiful, complex, ancient language." She showed recordings. Conversations she had with the Vilari using light pattern translation devices. I asked them about their history. They told me stories going back hundreds of generations. Stories of watching the stars and wondering if the lights in the sky were people too. Stories of hoping that when Skywalkers finally came, they would be kind. The chamber was silent, Nari continued. The mining operations have been destroying what the Vilari call elder trees. These are not just trees to them. They are living libraries. The oldest trees contain historical records written in bioluminescent lichen that the Vilari cultivate and read. We have been burning their history books for 15 years. Soman stood up. Objection. The witness is anthropomorphizing natural behaviors. No, Nari said quietly. I am telling you what they told me themselves. In their own words. In their own language. A language they have had for longer than humans have had writing. The head judge leaned forward. You can prove this? Yes, Nari activated a hologram. A young Vilari appeared, lights pulsing. The translation appeared as text below. We are the Den people. We have lived on the cold mother world since the first ice formed. We have watched the stars and dreamed of distant dens. We have sung the light songs of our ancestors. We have waited to see if the Skywalkers would see us as people or as things. One Skywalker saw us. She gave warmth when she had little warmth to give. She is Denkin now. We ask the council of many peoples to see us too. The chamber erupted in noise. Judges arguing with each other. Lawyers shouting objections. Council members demanding order, but Hannah just watched Tiny, the small. Vilari's lights pulsed in a pattern she had learned to recognize. Hope, the head judge called for silence. We will hear from the Vilari themselves. Bring them forward. Security was worried. Sir, they are classified as potentially dangerous. They are classified as non-sentient, the judge corrected. Which is what we are here to determine. Bring them forward. Tiny led the way. The 6 juveniles walked to the center of the chamber together. They were scared. Hannah could see it in the way their lights flickered unevenly. But they stood together in front of the entire Galactic Council. Nari activated the translation device. Can you tell the council who you are? The 6 juveniles looked at each other. Then their lights began to pulse together. The translation appeared on every screen in the chamber. We are cubs of the Ice Ridge Den. We are Tiny, Stripes, Patch, Bright, Shadow, and Squeaker. These are not our true names, but the names our denkin Hannah gave us. We accept these names because she gave them with love. The chamber was silent again. We were lost in the storm time. We were freezing. We found a den, but it was empty and cold. Then Hannah opened the door. She did not know us. She did not speak our light words. But she saw us suffering, and she shared her warmth skin with us. She gave us her food. She kept us safe through the long dark. Tiny's light pulsed brighter. When she became sick from cold fever, we called our den parents. They came and saw that Hannah was good. They made the great light to call the other skywalkers. They helped save her like she saved us. We are young, Patch continued. We do not know all the old stories yet. But we know that kindness makes family. We know that Hannah is our denkin. We know that we are people, just like the Skywalkers are people. We asked to be seen. The translation ended. The outpost medical bay smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Hannah floated in and out of consciousness as the medical team worked on her. 4 fluids, antibiotics, warming blankets. Voices speaking in worried tones above her head. When she finally woke clearly, it was dark outside the windows. A young woman sat in a chair beside her bed, working on a datapad. She had sharp eyes and quick movements. "You are awake," the woman said. She was not smiling. "I am Yuna, security officer. You caused quite a situation." Hannah's throat was dry. "Water?" Yuna helped her drink. Then she sat back down and crossed her arms. "There are 6 juvenile Valari camped outside the medical wing. They refuse to leave. There are 5 adult Valari waiting at the perimeter fence. They also refuse to leave. The mining company is very upset with you." "They are people," Hannah said. Her voice was stronger now. "The Valari. They are not animals. So Tay says. He has been studying your tablet data for 12 hours straight." Yuna's expression was hard to read. "The company does not want to hear it. They have to hear it. It is the truth." Yuna was quiet for a moment. "Truth is expensive. This outpost, these jobs, the company's license for this entire sector, all of it depends on the Valari being classified as non-sentient. If that changes, everything shuts down." Hannah pushed herself up in the bed. Her body ached, but the fever was gone. "So we lie? We pretend we do not know." "I am not saying that." Yuna stood and walked to the window. "I am saying it is complicated. People's lives will change. Not just here. The company employs thousands across multiple systems. Stock prices will crash. Investors will sue, and the Valari?" Hannah asked. "What about their lives?" Yuna turned back. For the first time, her expression softened slightly. "I almost shot one yesterday. When we found you, I had my weapon drawn and I was going to fire because I thought you were in danger." She looked down at her hands. "But you were not in danger. You were safer with them than you would have been alone. I need to think about what that means." The door opened. Tay entered, carrying Hannah's tablet and a folder full of data chips. He looked tired but excited. "You are awake. Good. I need you to explain everything that happened." "Every detail." Behind him came Day and another woman, younger, with bright, curious eyes. "This is Mina," Tay said. "She is a junior technician. She has been helping me analyze the light patterns." "They are language," Mina said immediately. She could barely contain her enthusiasm. "Complex syntax. Grammar structures. Abstract concepts." The tablet only caught fragments, but it is definitely language. Tay pulled up a chair and opened his datapad. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." So Hannah told them. The crash. Finding the cubs. The choice to share her blanket. The long, cold night. The way the cubs kept her warm. The beacon they built together. The arrival of the adults. The bowing gesture. The protection, everything. Mina recorded it all, her fingers flying across her datapad. "The bowing," she said. That is significant. It is a cultural gesture, recognition of debt or respect. Animals do not have cultural gestures. The beacon too, Tay added. Tool use, problem solving, cooperation toward a common goal. And they did it to help you, not themselves. That shows empathy and abstract thinking. Yuna was listening from the window. What about the company classification? Someone examined these creatures before and decided they were not sentient. Why? Tay's expression darkened. I looked at the original survey. It was rushed. 15 years ago, a team spent 3 weeks here. They observed Valari behavior from a distance. They saw pack hunting, den building, basic communication. They compared it to earth wolves and declared them smart animals but not people. He shook his head. No one tried to communicate. No one studied the light patterns. No one gave them a chance. Because the company wanted to mine here, Hana said quietly. And you cannot mine on a sentient species world without permission and profit sharing. Tay nodded. The Galactic Council laws are clear. Sentient species have rights, including the right to control their own planets. The door opened again. A man in a commander's uniform entered. He was older, with gray hair and a tired face. Everyone stood up straighter. Commander Jin, Yuna said. Sir? Jin looked around the room, then at Hana in the bed. Engineer Hana, I flew here as soon as I heard about the incident. I have read Tay's preliminary report. I have also been on 3 conference calls with company headquarters. He pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. They want me to bury this? Silence filled the room. They sent me new classification documents, Jin continued. They have expert witnesses ready to testify that the Valari behaviors can all be explained by instinct. They have lawyers prepared to argue that bioluminescence is just a mating display, that the bowing was submission, that everything you saw was you projecting human emotions onto animals. That is a lie, Hana said. You know it is a lie? Yes, Jin said simply. I do know. I've been the commander of this outpost for 7 years. I have seen things I ignored because it was easier. Valari building complex dens. Valari working together in ways that seemed too smart. But I did not want to see it. None of us did. He looked at each person in the room. Seeing it means losing everything we built here. Tay stepped forward. With respect, Commander, we built this outpost on someone else's land without asking. That is theft. If we knew they were people, we would be criminals. Jin rubbed his face. The company is offering me a promotion, a new position off this frozen moon. They are offering bonuses to everyone who stays quiet. They are offering to relocate anyone who cannot stay quiet. He looked at Hana. They are suggesting your fever caused hallucinations, that your report is not reliable. Hana felt anger rise in her chest. So that is it? We pretend it did not happen? No, Jin stood up. That is not it. He pulled out his own datapad. I am going to send your report, Tay's analysis, and all the collected data directly to the Galactic Council. I am requesting an immediate investigation into the sentience classification of the Valari. Yuna's eyes went wide. Sir, the company will destroy your career. Probably, Jin agreed. They will destroy all our careers. But some things matter more than careers. He looked at Hana. You shared your only blanket with creatures you did not know. You chose kindness over survival. That choice revealed a truth we have been hiding for 15 years. I will not hide it anymore. Mena was already pulling up transmission protocols. If we send it through official channels, the company can intercept it. We need to send it through the Council's emergency contact system, for situations involving potential sentient rights violations. Do it, Jin said. Sir, Yuna said. If you do this, there is no going back. Jin smiled, but it was a sad smile. I know, but going back was never really an option. Not after we learned the truth? He looked around at all of them. Anyone who wants to leave before the transmission is sent, leave now. I will not think less of you. This will affect everyone's life. No one moved. All right then, Jin said. Mina, send the transmission. Mina's fingers flew across her pad, compiling all data files, attaching video logs, including Hana's testimony, adding translation samples of light patterns, sending now. Everyone watched the screen. The progress bar filled slowly. Then a confirmation appeared. Message sent. Received by Galactic Council Emergency Response Division. It is done, Mina whispered. Jin let out a long breath. Yes, now we wait for the consequences. A chirping sound came from the door. Everyone turned. Tiny had somehow gotten into the medical wing. The small Valari sat in the doorway, head tilted, looking at all the humans gathered around Hannah's bed. Hannah smiled. Come here, little one. Tiny ran to the bed and climbed up. The others appeared in the doorway too, drawn by their siblings' boldness. They tumbled into the room, lights pulsing curiously. I should stop them, Yuna said, but she did not move. She was watching the cubs with a strange expression. They should not be in a medical wing. Let them stay, Jin said. They are family. He looked at the cubs, then at Hannah. That is what the database said, right? Denbond, Pakkin, they consider you family now, and I consider them family, Hannah said softly. Tiny climbed onto her head, settling into the now familiar spot. The other 5 piled onto the bed around her. Tay smiled. The Galactic Council will want to interview you. All of us, it will take months. Maybe years. There will be hearings, investigations, debates. I know, Hannah said, but it will be worth it. They deserve to be recognized. They deserve to have their voices heard. The cubs purred and their lights pulsed in gentle, happy patterns. Outside, beyond the fence, the adult Valari settled down to wait. They would wait as long as necessary. Because family protected family? And the strange humans had just proven they understood that truth. The galaxy was about to change. 1 blanket, 6 cubs, and a single act of kindness had started something that could not be stopped. Hannah woke to the sound of deep rumbling outside the hut. Not the storm? Something else? Something alive? The cubs in her lap stirred and their lights began pulsing rapidly. They made excited chirping sounds and scrambled toward the window. Through her fever fog, Hannah tried to sit up. The room spun. She pressed her hand against the cold wall to steady herself. What was happening? Tiny jumped from her head to the window ledge, bouncing with excitement. The other 5 crowded around, their small bodies pressed against the glass. Their lights flashed in complex patterns. They were talking to something outside. Hannah forced herself to stand. Her legs shook. She took 2 steps and had to grab the wall again. 3 more steps and she reached the window. She looked out into the early morning light. Massive shapes moved through the mist. At first, Hannah thought her fever was making her see things, but no, they were real. 5 adult Valari, each one the size of a bear. They had the same white fur as the cubs, but longer and thicker. Crystalline. Spines ran down their backs, glinting in the weak sunlight. Their bioluminescent markings were larger, brighter, covering more of their bodies in intricate patterns. They were terrifying. They were beautiful. The adult Valari moved toward the hut with purpose. Their massive paws left deep prints in the snow. Their lights pulsed in rhythm with the cubs' lights. A conversation, a reunion. Hannah's heart hammered in her chest. She had taken their children. She had stolen their cubs without knowing. Now they were here, and they were huge, and she was weak with fever and could barely stand. I am sorry, she whispered to the approaching shapes. I was trying to help. I did not mean to steal them. The cubs chirped frantically at the window. They wanted out. They wanted to go to their parents. Hannah stumbled to the door. It was the right thing to do. Give the cubs back. Hope the parents understood. Hope they did not see her as a threat. She pulled the door open. The cold air rushed in, but Hannah barely felt it through the fever. The cubs poured out of the hut, tumbling over each other in their excitement. They ran to the adults, chirping and flashing their lights. The adult Valari lowered their large heads and nuzzled the cubs gently. Deep rumbling sounds came from their chests, relief, love, family sounds that transcended species. Hannah leaned against the doorframe. She had done the right thing. The cubs were safe now. She could stop worrying. She could just let the fever take her for a while. It would be fine, but the cubs were not leaving. They chirped at the adults, then turned back to Hannah. They ran back toward her. Tiny reached her first and climbed up her leg, her jacket back to her head. The others pressed against her legs, almost pushing her back inside the hut. "No, no," Hannah said weakly. "Go with your family. Go on." The cubs did not listen. They pulled at her clothes with their small paws. Their lights pulsed urgently. The adult Villari watched this with tilted heads. Then, slowly, they began to move toward the hut. Hannah's survival instincts finally kicked in through the fever. Large predators coming toward her. She should be afraid. She should run. But there was nowhere to run, and she was too weak anyway. The largest adult Villari reached the doorway. It had to lower its head to look inside. Its eyes were deep and dark and impossibly intelligent. It looked at Hannah for a long moment. Then it looked at the cubs clinging to her. It looked at the thermal blanket on the floor, now covered with small paw prints and shedded fur. It looked at the empty food bar wrappers. It looked at the beacon the cubs had built from salvaged parts. Then the adult Villari did something Hannah never expected. It lowered its entire body to the ground in front of her. Its head touched the snow. The other adults did the same. 5 massive creatures, bowing to a sick human half their size. Tiny chirped from Hannah's head. The sound was gentle, almost proud. The largest adult raised its head and rumbled softly. Its bioluminescent markings pulsed in a slow, steady pattern. Hannah's damaged tablet was still in her pocket. It beeped suddenly. She pulled it out with shaking hands. The screen flickered to life. The translation program she did not know was running started processing data. Words appeared on the screen. Denbon recognized. Pakin, warm soul. Hannah stared at the screen. The tablet was picking up the light patterns. It was translating them. The non-sentient wildlife was speaking, and the tablet was finally listening. "I do not understand," Hannah said, though she suspected the Villari could not understand her either. The largest adult stood. It moved closer, careful and slow. It pressed its massive head against Hannah's chest, gentle despite its size. Warmth radiated from its body. The bioluminescent markings glowed brighter. The tablet beeped again. More words appeared. Shared warmth with lost cubs. Gave sustenance. Protected through dark time. You are pack now. We guard our pack. Tears surprised Hannah. They ran hot down her cold cheeks. You are not animals, she whispered. They said you were not people. But you are people. The adult pulled back and looked at her with those intelligent eyes. Then it turned to the other adults and rumbled loudly. All 5 adults raised their heads and their lights pulsed together. The combined glow was almost blinding. It filled the area around the hut, pushed back the morning mist, reached up into the sky like a pillar of blue light. A beacon, bigger than anything the cubs could make. Calling across the frozen moon. Hannah slid down to sit in the doorway. She could not stand anymore. The cubs piled into her lap. The adult Villari surrounded the hut, their bodies blocking the wind, their lights creating warmth and a signal that could be seen for kilometers. "Thank you," Hannah said. "Thank you for understanding." The cubs purred, the adults rumbled. And they waited together. 2 hours later, Hannah heard a different sound. Engines. Her eyes struggled to focus. A transport vehicle appeared in the distance, following the impossible pillar of light. The rescue team had found her. But what they found was nothing like what they expected. They found a sick human surrounded by the wildlife they had been told to avoid. They found the wildlife protecting her, warming her, signaling for her rescue. They found everything the company database said was impossible. A man jumped out of the transport first. He had kind eyes and moved carefully. He stopped when he saw the adult Villari. His hand went to his belt, but he did not draw his weapon. "Tay," another voice called from the transport. "Be careful. We do not know what they will do." But Tay was staring at the scene before him. Hannah, clearly sick and weak, sitting peacefully among the creatures. The cubs in her lap, the adults surrounding her protectively. The light beacon still shining above them all. "I think we know exactly what they are doing," Tay said quietly. He took a step forward, slow and non-threatening. They are protecting their family. A woman in medical gear, Day climbed out next. He saw Hannah's condition immediately. She needs help, now. Day started forward, but one of the adult Valari moved to block his path. Not aggressive, just cautious, protective. Tay knelt down in the snow. He looked at the adult Valari and spread his hands to show he was unarmed. Please, he said, we want to help her too. We are friends. The adult looked at him. Then it looked at Hannah. Hannah nodded weakly. Friends, she whispered. Let them help. The adult Valari stepped aside. Day rushed forward and knelt beside Hannah. High fever. Mild hypothermia, dehydration. We need to get her back now. The cubs, Hannah said as Day lifted her. Do not hurt them. Promise me. We will not hurt them, Tay promised. I swear it. Tiny chirped sadly from Hannah's head as Day carried her to the transport. The other cubs followed, unwilling to leave her. The adults walked alongside the transport as it started back toward the outpost, their lights still glowing bright in the transport. Wrapped in real thermal blankets with medical equipment beeping around her, Hannah looked at Tay. They talk, she said. Her voice was rough, with light. They build things, they understand. They are not animals. Tay nodded slowly. I believe you. The company has to know. Everyone has to know. Tay looked out at the massive creatures walking beside them, escorting their new family member home. Yes, he said, they do, and after this they will. The night stretched long and cold. Hannah drifted in and out of sleep, never quite warm enough to truly rest. Every time she closed her eyes, the cold would seep deeper into her bones and wake her up. The creature on her head stayed perfectly still, a warm weight against her skull. She decided to call it Tiny. Around midnight, Hannah started to shiver uncontrollably. Her teeth chattered. Her fingers felt numb even inside her gloves. This was bad. This was hypothermia starting. She recognized the signs from her training. If she could not get warmer soon, her body would start shutting down. The 5 creatures in the blanket noticed. Their chirping changed, became urgent and worried. They poked their heads out and looked at her with those large, dark eyes. The blue lights on their bodies began to pulse faster. Not dim anymore, but brighter. Warmer. One of them crawled out of the blanket. It had stripes of darker fur along its back. Stripes? Hannah thought hazily. That one is Stripes. The creature climbed onto her lap and pressed against her stomach. Its body heat felt wonderful. Another one followed. This one had a patch of white fur on its chest. Patch, then another, and another. Before Hannah fully understood what was happening, all 5 creatures had left the blanket. They climbed onto her, pressing their warm bodies against her legs, her stomach, her chest. They were sharing their heat with her. Their blue lights pulsed in a rhythm, and Hannah realized the light itself was giving off warmth. Not much, but enough to matter. Tiny chirped from her head. The others chirped back. It sounded almost like conversation. Thank you, Hannah whispered. Her voice was rough. Thank you, little ones. They stayed like that through the coldest part of the night. Hannah wrapped her arms around the creatures gently, and they did not pull away. Slowly, the shivering stopped. Her fingers tingled as feeling returned. The creature's combined body heat and the warm glow of their bioluminescence created a small pocket of survivable temperature. Hannah must have finally fallen into real sleep. Because when she opened her eyes again, pale light was coming through the window. Morning. She had survived the night. The creatures were rearranged now. 5 of them were tucked under the thermal blanket with her, pressed against her sides and legs. Tiny was still on her head, but had somehow worked deeper into her hair. When Hannah tried to sit up, Tiny made a protesting squeak. Sorry, Hannah murmured. She stayed still. Her body ached. Her head felt foggy and hot. She touched her forehead with the back of her hand. Fever. The hypothermia had been mild, but her body was fighting it now. She needed water and food. Hannah carefully moved the sleeping creatures and stood up. The world tilted sideways for a moment. She grabbed the wall until it steadied. Definitely fever. She checked her supplies. 2 food bars left after last night. No water, but she could melt ice from outside. The creatures woke up as she moved around. They stretched and yawned, showing small, sharp teeth. They watched her with interest as she used her emergency cup to scoop snow from outside the door. She brought it inside to melt. The cold air that rushed in made her shiver again. Tiny climbed down from her head and joined the others. They gathered in a small group and made chittering sounds to each other. The blue lights on their bodies pulsed in patterns. Flash, flash, pause. Flash, pause, flash, flash. It was mesmerizing to watch. Hannah ate half a food bar and saved the rest. The melted snow was cold but clean. She drank it slowly. Outside, the storm was still raging. She checked her radio again. Still nothing but static. The outpost could not reach her, and she could not reach them. "Looks like we are stuck together a while longer," she told the creatures. They tilted their heads at her voice. The smallest one, Tiny, chirped back. The others joined in? It really did sound like they were answering her. Hannah sat down with her back against the wall. The fever made her feel strange, like she was floating slightly above her own body. The creatures came over and climbed into her lap without hesitation. She smiled despite her discomfort. They trusted her now. She pulled out her work tablet from her pack. It had been damaged in the crash, but still worked partially. She opened the company database entry on Valari. The entry was short: non-sentient wildlife. Average intelligence level similar to Earth canines. Social pack behavior. Bioluminescent markings used for unknown purposes, possibly mate selection or camouflage. No language detected. No tool use observed. Classification. Animal. Hannah watched the creatures in her lap. She watched the way their lights pulsed in patterns. She watched them interact with each other, the gentle touches, the chirps that varied in pitch and rhythm. The way they had worked together last night to keep her warm. The way they seemed to discuss things in their small group. "I do not think the database is right," she said quietly. The creatures looked up at her. Tiny climbed up her jacket again and rubbed against her chin. The motion was deliberate, affectionate. This was not how animals acted around strangers. This was how family acted. The day passed slowly. Hannah dozed. The fever got worse. When she woke in the afternoon, she was shaking again, but this time from the fever, not the cold. Her throat was dry and painful. Her head pounded. The creatures noticed immediately. Their lights began pulsing in agitated patterns. They climbed on her, pressing close, chirping in worried tones. But Hannah could not respond. She was too tired. Too hot. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, it was darker. Evening, maybe? She was not sure. Time felt slippery. The creatures were doing something strange. They had dragged small pieces of equipment from around the hut. Her flashlight. A reflective emergency blanket wrapper. A piece of shiny metal from the broken heater. They were arranging these things in a pattern near the window. Hannah tried to focus. What were they doing? The creatures worked together with clear purpose. One would place an object, others would adjust it, moving it slightly until they seemed satisfied. Their lights pulsed constantly now, bright and rhythmic. Then Hannah understood. They were building something. A signal. The reflective surfaces were positioned to catch and amplify their bioluminescence. When their lights pulsed together, the reflection would be visible from far away. Much farther than their small bodies could normally project light, they were creating a beacon. "Smart," Hannah whispered. Her voice sounded far away to her own ears. "You are so smart." The creatures worked through the evening. Hannah watched them through her fever haze. She saw the way they communicated with light pulses and chirps. She saw the way they problem-solved together. She saw intelligence. Clear, undeniable intelligence? The database was wrong? These were not animals. These were people. Small, strange, wonderful people. As night fell again, the creatures activated their beacon. Their lights pulsed in unison, bright and steady. The reflective surfaces caught the light and threw it out into the darkness. Flash, flash, pause. Flash, pause, flash, flash. A rhythm, a pattern. A message. Hannah smiled weakly. They were calling for help. For her help? Or maybe for their own help. Either way, they were trying. Tiny climbed onto her head again and settled in. The other 5 pressed close to her body under the blanket. Their warmth was the only thing keeping the fever chills at bay. Good children, Hannah murmured. Such good children. Outside, the storm began to ease. And in the distance, if Hannah had been conscious enough to see, other lights began to appear. Large lights? Adult lights? Coming closer through the darkness. Help was coming. Just not the kind anyone expected. The wind screamed across the frozen moon like a living thing. Hannah pressed her gloved hands against the small window of the surveyor's hut and watched ice crystals dance in the darkness. Her breath made fog on the glass. She was alone, 15 kilometers from the mining outpost, and the temperature was dropping fast. The crash had happened 3 hours ago. One moment, her supply shuttle was flying normally through the thin atmosphere. The next moment, the ice storm hit like a hammer. The shuttle spun, alarms screaming, and then she was falling. She remembered the impact, the way her teeth rattled, the hiss of escaping air. She grabbed the emergency pack and ran before the fuel cells could explode. Now she was here, in this tiny metal box that prospectors used years ago. The emergency beacon in her pack was broken. She checked it 5 times, hoping she was wrong. She was not wrong. The screen stayed dark and dead. Her radio could not reach the outpost through the storm. Help would come eventually. The outpost would notice she was missing. But the storm would last at least 2 days, maybe 3. They could not fly rescue shuttles in this weather. Hannah looked at her supplies. 1 thermal blanket, silver and thin. 6 emergency food bars. A small medical kit. A broken heater that made sad clicking noises when she tried to turn it on. Her jacket was good, but not good enough for 3 days in temperatures that would drop below freezing tonight. She ate 1 food bar slowly. It tasted like cardboard and chemicals. Outside, the wind got louder. The little hut shook. Hannah wrapped the thermal blanket around her shoulders and sat against the wall. She would survive this. She was a mining engineer. She was trained for emergencies. She just had to stay warm and wait. That was when she heard the sound. At first, she thought it was the wind. But no, this was different. Higher pitched. Almost like birds chirping, but sadder. Hannah stood up and went to the window. She wiped away the fog with her sleeve. 6 small shapes huddled against the outside wall of the hut. They were trying to hide from the wind. Even through the frosted glass, Hannah could see they were shivering. They had fur, thick and white, but the storm was too strong. Blue lights flickered on their bodies, dim and weak. Like tiny stars dying out. Hannah had seen pictures of these creatures in the company database. Valari, they were called. Native to this frozen moon. The company classified them as non-sentient wildlife. Smart like dogs, maybe, but not people. The rules said to avoid contact. Let nature take its course. She watched the small creatures shake in the cold. One was much smaller than the others. It was trying to burrow under its siblings, seeking warmth that was not there. The blue lights on its body barely glowed at all. Hannah looked at her thermal blanket. She looked at the broken heater. She looked at the food bars that would maybe, just barely, last her 3 days if she was careful. Then she looked at the small creatures again. They would die out there. She knew this like she knew her own name. Before morning, they would freeze. Her survival instructor's voice played in her head. Conserve resources. Think of yourself first. You cannot help others if you are dead. But another voice was louder. It was her own voice, the one from before she learned to be practical and careful. The one that remembered being 6 years old and bringing home a stray cat in the rain. The one that still believed some choices were not about logic. Hannah walked to the door. She hesitated for just a moment. Then she opened it. The cold hit her like a physical blow. The wind tried to rip the door from her hand. Ice crystals stung her face. The 6 small creatures looked up at her with large, dark eyes. They did not run. They were too cold to run. Hannah gestured toward the inside of the hut. Come in, please." The creatures did not move at first. They stared at her. She must have looked strange to them. Tall and furless, wrapped in her jacket, speaking words they could not understand. Then the smallest one chirped. It was a tiny, desperate sound. It took one shaky step toward the door. The others followed. Hannah stepped back and let them stumble inside. They moved slowly, stiff with cold. Their fur was crusted with ice. The blue lights on their bodies pulsed weakly. She counted as they entered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All inside. She shut the door against the storm. The creatures huddled together in the middle of the small hut. They were not much bigger than house cats, but their bodies were different. Their faces were flat with large eyes. Their paws had 5 digits, almost like hands. The blue lights were bioluminescent markings that ran down their spines. Hannah had never seen them up close before. She knelt down slowly. She did not want to scare them. She unfolded her thermal blanket and spread it on the floor next to them. The creatures watched her with those large, dark eyes. "Go on," she said softly. "It is warm." The smallest one moved first. It crawled onto the blanket and immediately burrowed into the folds. The others followed quickly. Within seconds, all 6 were wrapped in the silver material, pressing close together. Their shivering started to slow. Hannah sat back against the wall. Her jacket suddenly felt very thin. The cold of the metal wall seeped through her clothes. She pulled her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. One of the creatures poked its head out of the blanket. It looked at Hannah, then it chirped, a questioning sound. It crawled out and moved toward her. "No, no," Hannah said. "You stay warm." "I am okay," but the creature kept coming. It was the smallest one. It climbed onto her boot, then her knee, then up her jacket. It was surprisingly light. It reached her shoulder and made a decision. It climbed onto her head and settled into her hair like a nest. Hannah froze. The creature was warm. Its fur was soft against her forehead. It made a rumbling sound, almost like purring. The blue lights on its body glowed a little brighter, casting a soft light in the dark hut. "All right then," Hannah whispered. "I guess this is happening." The wind howled outside. The temperature dropped. Hannah closed her eyes and tried not to think about how cold she was getting. The small creature on her head purred softly. Inside the blanket, the other 5 made gentle chirping sounds as they warmed up. Hannah had made her choice. Now she would live with it. Or die with it. Either way, she would not be alone.